Hello and welcome. My name's James and I'm guessing you've come to this video because, shock horror, you want to learn how to string a tennis racket. You've come to the right place. So with cross strings, of course, they are woven. So the strings go up and down and through. Now, if you're a competition player, then they must be woven alternately, otherwise it's an illegal stringing job. If you were to just put strings on top of each other, you get massive movement, probably massive topspin. It's completely illegal. If you string, and you'll see here how we go, this one goes over, this one goes under, this one goes over. If you don't do that correctly, technically it's an illegal stringing job by ITF rules. So all you're going to be doing here is you're going to be weaving your string through. To start with though, we're going to take our multi-filament, and the first thing we have to do is we have to get this started, which means the first thing we're going to do, you'll see here at the top, we've got our first empty grommet hole for the cross to go through. So we're going to just snip this off to make it, and you'll see here why you need to have these ends angled, because you're going to be poking them through. And then what you're going to do basically with your string, and what we're going to do is we're going to bring it through, knot it off, tension it, and then we're going to start weaving through this way. Now weaving, different people have different techniques. Mine is not the best. When you watch professionals, they do this kind of weaving like this. What I do is I take the string, I put it over and I push it down, put my finger underneath, push it back up, and I'm basically weaving it through, like so. And then all I do is then poke it through the hole here. And because I'm going to be knotting this off, I just need enough string to be able to knot this. Now, some people use starter clamps, where you clamp the string on the outside here and you have a special clamp. I don't do it that way. I just get my first clamp, I push it up, and again, you're going to have to adjust this. This is a multi-filament, it's softer, so I'm going to have to tighten my string up. And again, it's a bit of trial and error to find out, and you can kind of feel when it's really clamped. Now what I do is I come in and I put my knot in, and this one in this is a pure strike, actually goes back and onto the outside main, like so. And the knot exactly the same. I'm going to go under, back through, like so, pull it tight, and then I'm going to go under, back through, and pull it tight, and then I can cut that off. Now this one is, we're going to string this at 54 pounds, so it's 52 mains, 54 pounds in the crosses. And what I'm going to do here, I've got it clamped here, so when I tension this is important. You don't want to pull your tension against the knot, because it will just pull the knot straight through the frame. What you'll also notice, this is a multi-filament, it's a lot softer, so it stretches a lot more than the mains. I'm then going to get my clamp positioned. And again, there'll be some purists here that freak out at what I'm about to do and say, oh my God, that's not the way you do it. I do it this way. As I'm about to show you, I'm just gonna make sure that that clamps, it does. What I do then is I hold the drop weight, I let off my clamp, and I just give enough tension without seeing the knot pulling through. And then I clamp it off, make sure it's tied up. And what I've got there is I've got my first cross string in, okay? So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna start stringing the crosses. And basically the essence here is to make sure that you alternate, that you don't accidentally go over two strings and skip one. And there are a few ways you can just make sure you do this. So we can see here that my first string here went over, but now I'm on the outside string, so this one's also gonna go over and then under. And what you'll kind of see is as you're stringing, you know you're doing it right, because as you're going over a string, it looks like it's raised up. As you're going under a string, it's pushed downwards by the previous string. But you can also just do a quick check. I can see that one's over, this one goes under. And then again, I'm just weaving it through. And you see how I'm going down across the racket here. And then I go back through the hole. Now, a really important thing here, don't just pull this through, because what you're gonna do, it's gonna burn through the string. Literally, this string will cut against this string. So what you do, you hold it in this hand, you pull this down and then pull it through. You pull it down, pull it through, pull it down, pull it through. And you do that slowly. And what it does, it just makes sure that you're not getting any sort of burn in any one position, because if you cut or notch into the string, you're weakening it. So you could prematurely have a breakage in your string. Now I've pulled this one all the way through, and then generally what you do is I string ahead 2 strings, but I leave a little loop here so I can tension this one. And the reason for that is, and you'll see that as you go across the racket, it gets tighter and tighter and harder to weave. So I'm going to come back through again, and again, make sure I'm not kinking this string in any place. Go through my hole, so I can see here, this one's under, so I go over, and then I just start weaving again. Now, what you can do to make sure you're doing this correctly, and I do recommend that you do check, because there's nothing more annoying than getting to the end of your stringing job and seeing that you've skipped a string. So again, we're going to come in here, and as we go through, just make sure I'm not burning. Okay, and then I'm going to leave a loop here, bring it across, tension it. And now, this is a really important thing. These strings will start notching very, very quickly. Basically, strings will kind of cut into each other. And what you really want to make sure that you've got are all of your crosses and your mains are nice and straight, because they will pull and bend and skew. So what you want to do as you go, just make sure you're straightening these up, okay? I can release this off, and I can bring my next clamp in and tension that up. Fantastic, we're done, okay? And then finish pulling this through. And again, I'm going to push these up and just keep making sure they're nice and straight. Some people do these after the job. I like to do it as I'm going, just because I'm a little bit like that way. Okay, and essentially then, we're just going to keep on going through and doing exactly the same thing. Now I'm going to fast forward this in just a second, but I'm going to show you a trick that you can easily make sure that you're stringing the right way, apart from religiously analyzing each string. And if I just put that through, okay, and left a little loop there. So if you take your racket, what you can do, if you turn it like this, you'll see the lines going across the string, and that you can tell all of the alternations are exactly the same. So if you on your stringing machine get down low and look across your strings, you'll really quickly be able to spot if you've skipped one, because your pattern won't look like that. You won't have those nice clear lines, okay? Alternatively, you can just look at the string and just make sure, and you will kind of tell, because all of a sudden you'll start a string and you'll be like, hang on a minute, they're both going under or they're both going over. Now, just a quick note here, you'll see that the string is behind the clamp, the next hole is after it. So what we can do, we just make sure that we feed over the top. We can then run it through and pull and leave ourselves, again, just enough of a loop to be able to tension. And then I can come in here and continue on with the next hole. Do make sure you haven't strung it around the outside, otherwise again you'll literally find you've strung your stringing job to the stringing machine and you're going to have to start the whole thing all over again. Boo-hoo. Now just a quick point, you can see here that generally you want to try and get the clamp as close to the frame as possible. The further away it is, you're basically leaving a bit of string that's got no tension in it. And as the string wraps around and you tension again, it's not going to pull as much tension around that corner. Now some people might think of stringing going 2 and pulling 2 at a time. You will not get a uniform tension across both of the strings. Basically any corners you cut, you are going to end up with a substandard stringing job. And to be honest, it really doesn't take that much longer. Other things that I have tried myself that I've heard others doing as well is trying to string the whole racket and then pull it through. I tell you, it is a nightmare. It really doesn't save you any time. So I would suggest always keep just stringing one ahead, tensioning it, and to be honest, you're really not going to take that much longer to do this. The reason why, again, you pull the string up and down is you'll start to notice at this point, I'm almost halfway, and you'll start to see the string bed gets pretty tight, and this part gets pretty tight as well. Basically, as you're working both pulling it up and down as you go through, but also stringing one ahead, this gets tighter and tighter and it actually gets harder to string. So it just allows you to string while having a bit of flex to work with. So we now got past halfway and you'll see I can't keep moving the clamp, so all I do is pull the clamp up, turn it around, and basically I start working downwards with that. Now just a quick note here, if you kind of look down your strings and you find out you've made a mistake, it's fine. You can just let the tension off. Let's say if I'd made a mistake up in this string, I could just come back up, reclamp it, let my tension off, and then literally if I would need to unstring it, I just do it the same way. I pull and push it out and get it back out. It's really not going to take you long to fix an error. Whereas if you get to the end and take it off because you can't be bothered, it will both look a bit rubbish, but also it will technically affect the performance of your racket. By how much? Probably minimal, but you know what? Do a good job. You've got time to do it. That's the whole point of doing stuff yourself, is to do it well. And you'll see again another classic example. It's actually looped right under the stringing machine here, which both, if I hadn't picked that up, but also it threatens to put a kink in. So just be careful about those sorts of things. Right, so here we go. So I've made a mistake here. So I can see that I'm finishing off both of these going over. So I need to look there and find out where have I gone wrong. And you can see right in the middle, I've gone over the top of two strings. You kind of really quickly see, because then I finished and gone, hang on a minute, they're the same. So what I need to do is pull that back out and then make sure here I go under and over. You do need to keep your eyes open because it can happen, but you do kind of see it quite quickly if you make a mistake. Okay, now I've got 1, 2, 3 strings left to do. I've also got a clamp to work around. Now what you're going to find for these last 3 strings, it's going to be really difficult to weave the strings and pull it through. So what you generally do, in this case I'm just going to tension this one off and clamp that. And now what you're going to do, you're going to actually weave this and pull it as you go. And the reason for that is you'll just really start struggling to pull the string through. So all we're going to do now for these last few strings is get that around the clamp. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull all of the string through, and as I go through I'm basically going to do that on each string. So I'm going to pull all the string through, weave it and pull it through, weave it and pull it through. Really doesn't take any more time. In fact, it could be even a little bit quicker because you've already pulled the string, and all this does is it makes sure that it's really easy to pull the string. You will struggle towards the end to do the weaving and pulling afterwards. So I'm going to go through. So basically for my last 3 strings, I'm just going to do one at a time, weaving and pulling as I go. And again, I just want to start going back through and really making sure, if I look across, to make sure that these strings are nice and straight. They really do quite quickly start cutting into one another. I mean, particularly if you're like me, you go away and watch a movie or something because you get bored, and you come back and you find that you actually can't move the strings and straighten them because they've started cutting into each other. So I like to do that as I go, even on the mains as well. Okay, and let's do pulling and weaving at the same time for the last couple. Okay, and we're on to the last string. Now again, I've done this at an angle, and you will find now I've got the main string crossing over, so I need to be able to get under or over that, which it really helps to have an angled end to your string. Pull that through and weave it. And at this point you feel like absolutely amazing because you know your racket's just about done. And believe me, after you've done 10 rackets, you realise it's not very interesting, but you like the fact that you're saving lots of money. So, now you can see again, I'm going to tension that, but then what I'm going to do again is cut off the excess. So I can cut an inch, and you can see that I had probably, what's that, about 80-90 centimeters too much. So I probably only need about 5.1 meters 5.1, 5.2 meters of string to be able to string this. Now I almost made a mistake there. Fortunately I had it clamped. I took the tension off before clamping it. So fortunately, and that's why I like to leave one of the clamps on beforehand. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we've got a big hole just underneath. So I'm going to poke it back up and through. This one's quite fiddly. I go over the main string, back up through the other side of the main string and through the hole. There we go. And then what I'm gonna do, because I've got to get down in there and up, what I like to do at the end is put a couple of bends in, basically create myself a little hook, like so, so that I can basically poke it up and through there. There we go. And basically when I take the string off now, boom, boom, cut that off, stringing job is done. So now I'm safe to let off all the clamps, undo, put that back, and my racket is strung. And all I'm going to do now is just make sure that all the strings are nicely straightened up, and on the mains as well. And we have a string job done. So all in all, string job done. It's not really that difficult. Again, once you get good, you can do that in about 20-25 minutes if you're really going for it. And really straightforward to do, saves you a lot of money, but also I think allows you to experiment with strings, because you can go and buy lots of different strings, string them at different tensions, and you know that actually you can do that really cost efficiently to find strings that really work for you. Hope that was helpful for you. That is how to string a racket. Go have fun.